it's your girl Mae Stone, and I'm back for an episode with Behind the Herb, where we interview some of the policymakers and tastemakers within the cannabis industry who deserve their flowers. And today I have a fellow Texas native, straight from Houston, the MJ Iyana. Hey girl, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So I was speaking with Will and I was like, yo, I have somebody that I would really love to interview because I've been on her show and you have a podcast, Wine, Weed, and Weave. And I think it's so great and it's informative. And I know that you're also somebody who wants to, you know, work in the cannabis media space and combine those two. So this is great having you on. So how are you today?
I'm doing great. I was so excited to be on here. See, I got cute just for y'all. I haven't gotten cute at all because of quarantine. So I'm like,
I feel that. No, and I say that all the time. Yeah, and I said it all the time because I'm like, listen, this gives me the excuse to dress up for once because I do not.
Yeah, got cute. I had a joint, had some great breakfast, so I'm feeling good. Always like talking to you guys and excited to just get into the conversation.
So what are you smoking on right now?
Oh, what did I just have? I don't even know. It just said hybrid on the
it was one of those. Yeah, no, I
those.
understand. Hey, but sometimes you just gotta smoke one of those sativa joints.
Yeah, I just need this straight to the point. So I had a little baby hybrid, and I'm probably gonna be taking some dabs out of my little dab pen.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, lit. So tell me a little bit about your cannabis journey, because I know, but for some of our viewers out here in All Def Cannabis who are new to you, tell us about your journey within the cannabis industry.
Yeah, so I have been in the cannabis industry for about 5 years now. I started in 2016 in California in the medical industry. I just graduated college, graduated from UNT. And I was in the journalism program. I had that background in media. I had that interest in storytelling and creating things. And believe it or not, I actually started writing about weed for the first time in that program. Like while everyone was doing their senior papers about like politics and whatever else about like what was happening in the world, I was really, really interested in what was happening in the cannabis industry in Colorado. So they were like, pick a topic for the year. Pick subject for the year, write about just that for the year. So for like a full year, I was just constantly researching and reading about the cannabis industry, how it was legalizing, what legalization looked like. And I was just fascinated by it. And I ended up giving those samples from college to a company, and they ended up hiring me to do some digital marketing and copywriting for them. That was one of my first jobs after college. So it wasn't something I really intended to get into, but it just made sense because I had the knowledge. And ever since then, I've really just been doing a little bit of everything. I also created my own business. Cushion Cute is my cannabis skincare hemp and CBD brand. I made that in about 2016 as well. And that was a big part of my journey. It connected me with just so many people, so many other women in the industry. It really just made me understand what it was like running a business in the industry, you know, how you have to really have the knowledge and the awareness and have something to contribute that's not just a product, but actually a story and who you are. And the support that I got just made me want to keep going and keep going and keep going. So that's why I've now been in the industry for 5 years. Someone called me a veteran. I'm like, I'm not that old, but I am a kind of a veteran in this industry because a lot of people get pushed out, and I have had people in situations trying to push me out, and I've kept going. And since then, I've moved all around. I moved to Seattle, and I did a lot of work there in the industry for about a year. And now I'm back in California and doing a lot of work and still running my small business. I have a cannabis marketing company as well, and I work for a dispensary. So I juggle a lot of things.
You were just all up in the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
Everything is cannabis.
Everything I just said, I was like, every single job I have right now is cannabis related, and that's all I ever wanted to do. Like, I wanted to do that.
I want to go back really quickly because you said you wrote about cannabis back in college. How was that received? Like, what did they think?
You know,
for y'all who don't know, we both went to the same college. We both went to UNT, that's the University of North Texas. And yes, it's, you know, like a liberal college, but it's still in Texas, which is a red state.
And so Texas, which is very different from the southern part.
It's very country up there in North Texas.
Very country.
Yes,
very conservative. There was Confederate statues. It is.
No, I literally, because I would tell people like it was the craziest place, because being at UNT, that's the first place that I seen they had like a gay prom for folks. But also walking down Frat Row, I would still see like the South will rise again, or I'll see Confederate flags. They'll hang those in the windows and shit, or on the back of their pickup.
It was very interesting. Yeah, it was a mix of worlds.
It's an odd environment, so odd.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't even really get like into weed until I went to college, and I think that college, I don't know if they'll rebrand me or take my degree away. I don't really care with that college.
No,
has a really big weed culture, honestly. There was a lot of people I knew who were also like very interested in the plant, and as a college kid, you deal with a lot of anxieties that you've never dealt with before. True. So in college, when I started to really experiment with cannabis in my personal life, and I feel like it helped me get through that time in my life, honestly. And when I wrote about it, people responded. My professors honestly were like, "This is great." I was a great writer. Like, they were like, "This is fantastic."
Okay.
At first, my classmates were like, "You're crazy. Why are you like? There's real problems happening in the world." I'm like, I'm so sick of writing about sad shit. Like.
But even still, there's problems within the cannabis industry, because there's people that are sitting in prison right now.
It's very exciting because Colorado was the first state to become legal, so we were all watching it happen for the first time.
Yep.
I was just so fascinated as to what that looks like and what legal cannabis could look like. And now being where I'm at now, being a legal cannabis marketing professional in the space, I pretty much just took what I was doing not in the cannabis industry and just flipped it into the cannabis industry. And that's showing you and telling you that this is a real legitimate industry in a space. Yes. And even 5 years ago, we knew that. And that's why everyone was kind of watching. And that's why some people were a little skeptical, because they were maybe scared about like, what does legal cannabis look like?
I agree. And you kind of have to plant that seed, early, figuratively, but early. And that's kind of what I tell people also with my path with All Deaf Cannabis is like, I reached out to Will maybe like a year or two ago before I got on the show. I told him the things that I wanted and what I was interested in. And it's really interesting how all those things come together. Sorry, this is loud ass kid.
Yeah. Oh, you're okay.
You know how it is out here in LA. So speaking of, I also wanted to ask you, what are some of your differences? Because you also have a unique perspective. You've worked in Seattle, and I used to work in Oklahoma, but cannabis was not legal then at the moment. At that time, I think it was only allowed for those who suffer from epilepsy and seizures.
Medical.
Yeah, exactly. So, but even within medical, it was very specific just to that. Like, it was very weird, as if there's not, other medical issues that could also be tended to, right?
Yeah.
What are the differences that you noticed working in the cannabis industry in California versus, out in Washington?
It's very different in the sense that like the Washington cannabis industry is very, very, very small. Even though it's a big state, it's smaller compared to California just because the state is bigger, and we have dispensaries all the way from the Bay Area down here. So it's way bigger. More people are doing a lot more things. There's a lot more room for opportunity and growth and for entrepreneurs to really get their feet wet. There's even, because we can have like events in California, I see a lot more support for like the brands that are coming up. I'm still someone that likes to pop into like those underground sessions and just see like what's going on there and support those people, as well as go to the dispensary. As for like Washington, you can't really do that. It's like just the dispensary, just what the stores will, carry and offer you. And there's definitely not as much diversity, unfortunately. They like to say that they're very diverse and very inclusive and like open to all, and that is very much the attitude of the state of Washington, I think.
Yeah.
But the cannabis industry in Washington, I don't feel like is like that. It's very hard to like feel supported and kind of feel included. And even though I did have some great opportunities in the industry out there, I unfortunately somewhat felt like I was what's the word, like a ticket, or like more so like, look, we hired a Black person, and we hired a Black woman, and look, we are diverse. And one of the jobs in particular that I had literally did use me to like fix their racism. It didn't work, but they tried.
Just for hashtag representation.
Yeah, like before I got there, before I was hired for the job, there was a race issue with the owner, and people in the community were very upset. And then I got the job, like super pumped. And then I found out what happened and that I had to somewhat fix it. And it was very uncomfortable. But I did it because I needed to keep my job. Like Seattle's very expensive. Like I needed to have my, roof over my head. But after a year, I kind of realized like that state was not going to support what I wanted to do in this space. So I came back to California now that it's recreationally legal, because I've been watching, like when I was in Washington, I was always like, dang, California is so lit with the weed event. Like I should be out there. Like that's where I should be again. So returning here has just been so great, starting my journey out here in 2016 and then coming back. I never thought I would come back. Not never thought, but I didn't think I'd come back till later in life. So it's funny how life and the universe kind of pushes you before you're ready to just be like, go. And then I got here and things just kind of started happening. So I definitely feel like California is way more inclusive and supportive in terms of like community and people in the industry. Like I know way more like women of color specifically in the cannabis industry out here. As for in Seattle, I knew like me and one other person.
And I'm so glad you spoke on that too, because I don't think, I do think actually that a lot of, white folks, I think that they're helping out or doing a favor by, having maybe one Black person on. But like you said, I'm glad you spoke to the fact that they're expecting you to fix something, because I was just speaking with other Black women in the cannabis industry not too long ago that sometimes it feels that we're hired to fix the problem with, within the industry, when the problem is racism, and that's not our issue.
That's not my problem. That has nothing
That
to
is
do
not my problem at all. And it's wild because, I don't know about you, but at the same time, we're receiving emails and different things, or looking at some of their ads or something that they'll have about, celebrate Black women or Black History Month this, or people of color awareness that. And it's just like, I like to deal with people who, you got to walk it like you talk it. And it's very hard to come across those groups within the cannabis industry, wherever you go.
Yeah, I definitely see those brands and I'm like, but what are you doing? Like I see your post, I see the banner on your website, but what are you actually doing? Especially during time in Seattle when, in the world, but especially in Seattle when like George Floyd was happening and all those protests were happening. Like Seattle is one of the states that got shut down. And I was going into the street like very much worried for my safety, but also understanding that like I had the ability to like, being there was my own way of like rebelling against the system. Like I was like, I'm gonna sit here, you're not gonna push me out. And eventually I was pushed out of there, but that only meant I had to come somewhere else. Like one of my favorite quotes, kind of like, planting astrology is, it's not the plant that like needs to change. There's nothing wrong with the plant. It's the environment that needs to change. Sometimes you have to change the environment in order to grow. And since the environment's changed, it's been nothing but growth, and I'm super grateful.
Yeah, bless your heart. And I agree too, because I've definitely been places where, I was like, oh, I can make a change. I can make a difference here. And it's just like, no, you can make a change or make a difference, but you got to take your talents elsewhere.
Yeah, you got to go somewhere else, girl.
Yeah, and the irony in that too is, the place I'm talking about, they actually ended up shutting down anyway. And that's another thing too, is I definitely just be wanting people to be true to yourself, because a lot of these companies, you can't always guarantee that they'll last, because it's such a new industry. Like we just got HR departments like maybe 2 years ago. We didn't.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was like, for what happened to me, I definitely needed an HR department, and there was not an HR department.
Right. And that's what makes it so difficult to navigate these things, because if you don't have an HR department, you don't necessarily have anybody who's going to continue to enact policy. And so that's when things could just go awry. But
eventually I just kind of was like over it and kind of like put my foot down. I don't know if I can cuss, but I was like, this is some bullshit. And I sent a very long, like just very articulate, I was a writer, I'm good with words. But very like articulate, but kind of like smart ass email to my boss.
To read them down.
Yeah, just kind of like, how do you value your employees? How are you it was during Corona, like how are you gonna protect us? We don't have benefits, we don't have insurance, we don't have HR, like what's gonna happen to us? And then for me asking those questions and kind of saying like, I'm a person, and because I need to work here, you need to protect us. I ended up being let go, and I was very devastated. It was very like unfortunate, but I'm so grateful because it ended up leading to like everything that's ended up happening now.
Wow, that is powerful too. No,
that kind of shows their ass too. At the end of the day, like, people always show you who they really are.
They really do. And I mean, I think it's too, like, yes, we're talking about cannabis companies, but there's people that are behind these companies too, right?
Yeah,
and
in general,
like, we can see what you're really about. That definitely shows eventually.
Yeah.
But also, I remember, you were saying something also about your astrology, and I remember we were having a conversation about that too. So on a high note, what's your sign again?
I am Gemini Sun, Libra Moon, Pisces rising. There we go.
Whew, stressful.
No one stresses me out more than me, I promise you.
Yeah. I'm about to say, how do you make decisions? Because
I hate making decisions.
Pisces, I know it's a lot. I know.
Yeah, I hate making decisions. It's very difficult. I know it's the Gemini in me that has a very hard time making decisions. And people always tell me they don't think I'm a Gemini. They'll be like, "What sign are you?" I'm like, "I'm a Gemini," and they're like, "You seem very level-headed for a Gemini. You don't seem as kooky as other Geminis."
I never would have guessed.
I was honestly raised a certain way. Like, my mom, she literally knew she was having a Gemini, and she has Gemini friends. So she was like, "I know how to handle this one," and kind of just taught me how to, like, balance and everything, and how to, like, not let my own thoughts overwhelm me. So when it comes to decision making, I kind of do get very overwhelmed, but I kind of have to take that time to, like, be very intentional. Like, I'll smoke weed, I'll sit down and journal.
And that's all like meditate and stuff as well while you smoke.
Yeah, like, I meditate. I love, like, getting high and then meditating, because I go, like, just out of body and just feel very much like I can kind of do anything. That's where my decision making kind of comes, just from my own intuition. Just being like, I have to just let go of, like, all of the thinking and all of the anxiety, and just see, like, what's best for me. And usually my gut is right, and then I don't listen to my gut, and then something happens and I'm like, my gut was right. I should have listened to my gut.
I feel you. Well, I mean, as far as decision making, I mean, I know you have the Wine, Weed, and Weave podcast. That's been a very great decision, because that's been really fruitful for you, hasn't it? You're in.
Yeah, that's been surprisingly really fruitful. Yeah, I'm in season 3 now. It just started as, like, a fun way for me to, because I was the only Black woman at my job. Like, I had no one else to really talk to about, like, the struggles that I was going to. So I just created this podcast to be like, I want other Black women to talk to, and, like, for other Black women who are in space to feel like they're heard. And I was just high one day and I made it. And now we're in season 3, and it's crazy, and it's been super supportive. Reached 10K listeners total, and have had, like, sponsors from a lot of the brands that I've worked with are from Black owned and women owned, and they've gotten, lots of support. So I'm super grateful to have this platform and still be creating it. And I'm glad you were on. It was super fun. I got to have you back on.
No, definitely. I look forward to it, girl. You know where I'm at. And like I said, we are just right down the street or up and down the street from each other too, child. I'm available for you.
I like how Southern people say up and down the street when we're like 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, it's a smooth hour and a half during traffic.
I know. So close.
But you just right down the road, girl. It's all right.
Right down the road. I'm just right around the corner.
Yeah. But like I was gonna say, I really enjoyed the podcast too, and I think also that speaks to a lot of Black women. I think we turn to the internet to connect with one another too, because I came from a very, like, conservative, hard news background. I was a TV news reporter before I moved to California, and I wanted to break out of that. I wanted something that was edgy, but I also wanted my journalism and my work within the media space to make a difference. Like, there's definitely more of an activism side to it, and you can't do that when you're working for an ABC affiliate. That's just not going to happen. Yeah. And so that's kind of what also drew me to it. But I didn't know anybody else who was doing some of the stuff that I wanted to do, and ironically, that's how you and I connected too within this cannabis.
So I'm like, yo, how come we never met? Like. We were never at a sesh, like, nothing. We probably had the same plug, like, I'm sure.
Pretty sure we met. We was at a college party or something together, but
I didn't smoke at the same bar. Like, it's so fun to connect with other women of color in space, because you realize you have so much in common. You're like, oh my gosh, you think like me. And You want to create the things that I create, and you collaborate. And from that support, like I said, I just kept going. Like, I've wanted to quit so many times, but I've literally had women call me and be like, "You're not quitting. You can't do it. Like, we're gonna keep supporting you and answering your questions and like helping you." And naturally, I think just coming from being a Black woman and coming from a line of Black women, naturally we're just very resilient and just want to like just keep pushing and keep pushing.
I agree. There's not many of us here that are working in this space and trying to make changes or anything, but we are here and we know each other. We communicate with one another. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it too, is the way that we uplift one another. It's not, the difference I think is when I was working in more of like the hard news space, there was a lot of competition. There was a lot of competition.
Very competitive, yeah.
The other Black women reporters, and it obviously was created by, white folks in the industry, but it really bothered me to see Black women play into that as well. But now being in this cannabis space, I think we are a lot more cohesive when we work with one another, and because we all come from different backgrounds as well. So
yeah, definitely agree. This is the only industry I've been in where I've felt support pretty much like throughout the whole time. I've never really had kind of like that competitive nature to me. Naturally, I'm not competitive. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't even want to compete with people. I really don't.
I don't care that much.
There wasn't no competition. Like, why can't we all just win?
Yeah, that's why I suck at bowling, because I don't care. I'm like, it's a ball and spins. I don't care, and people get mad at me. But I'm not competitive naturally, so I think I gravitate towards space as well, because I have never had an issue with, someone seeing me and being like, oh, they're my competitor. They'll kind of look at me and I look at them and they go, oh, I want to work with them, or I want to ask them a question, or I want to, share them with other people. And I love that energy in this space.
Yeah, same. Well, I'm going to wrap this up here in a minute, but I want to know, what are some pointers I think that you would give young Black women who want to start in the cannabis industry?
Ooh, that's such a hard question, and I get it all the time. It's so difficult to answer. I think my first pointer would definitely be just like, reach out to people that you admire or you want to work with, or like a DM or an email never hurts. You really never know who's going to respond. I literally talk to people who think they're not going to talk to me, and they can simply hit my DMs or my business DMs, and it's always me. I'm always going to answer. And if you have a question, 9 out of 10 times I'm going to answer. Maybe not right away, but like eventually. Yeah. And I've been able to have conversations with brands and other women's industries simply because I went in their DMs or I sent them an email. Everyone seems, like we said, to be really supportive. So if you have a question, just ask. If you want to know how to do something, if you see a company that's doing something you want to do, just ask them questions. And if they don't answer, just move on to someone else, because someone eventually will kind of resonate with you. And then just align with people that kind of have the same values as you and want to do the same things as you do and see the same things that you want to see in this space. I think the alignment has been so important for my growth, and it's just so valuable to feel like you're working with people and working in spaces that have the same kind of mission and values as you, and love the industry and love the plan as much as you do. There's lots of people in the industry who kind of just want to do it for money, and that's fine. Like, that's totally okay. It's a very valuable industry, but if that's not what you value, then don't work with those kinds of people. If you're someone that actually wants to kind of be more involved in like the equity side or the plant touching side, align yourself with those groups of people. And
those are people you want to work with, child.
Yeah, like, don't just go work for anybody just because. Like, just do the research, see, what you're interested in, what you're good at. If you do something now and you want to do something with cannabis, just change what you're doing now to cannabis. If you're an accountant, you can be a cannabis accountant. Like,
true.
That's totally possible. Just do your research and ask lots of questions, and smoke weed if you like to.
Lit. So where can we find you?
Okay, you can find me on Instagram at the Marijuana Iyana, spelled just the Marijuana, Iyana. And then my website and all my links are in my link in bio. My business is Cushion Cute at Cushion Cute on Instagram. And you can find the link for that shop. We have a temporary shop right now that's doing really great, so I appreciate everyone supporting that. My podcast, Wine, Weed, and Weave, season 3 is out now. The next episode will come out next Sunday. The first 2 episodes are already out, so it's super fun. You can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much everywhere I listen to podcasts. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm probably forgetting something. I do a lot, but
you do everything.
I do
but hey, like you said, we got a link to your bio, child, and
all the links in the bio. There's like 17 links in that link tree. Find all those links in the bio.
I feel that. Well, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for taking out the time to speak with us. You're amazing. Your work is very important, and we appreciate all that you do.
You're amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And this is Behind the Herb. I am Mae Stone. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Mae Stone. And we'll chat with y'all later. Bye.
Bye, guys.